Chris. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our spotlight speaker for our day 2 of our Cerebral Palsy Conference. We're happy to have here with us Ann Tisdale. Ann is a successful researcher, mom of 3, and author of the children's book, Mighty Miss Maya, See It, Then Be It. Ann has spent the last 7 years watching her daughter, who has cerebral palsy, overcome one hurdle after another by teaching her to have a growth mindset. As a strong advocate for children with disabilities, Ann wanted to write books featuring characters with disabilities living their lives, books that all children would enjoy while teaching them to stretch their own thinking about what they are capable of doing if they take a chance. So, Ann, you're here to share your inspiring story of overcoming obstacles and learning to helping learn to walk in the early prognosis of your medical team. And you will also do a reading of the book, Mighty Miss Maya, See It, Then Be It. So yeah. So welcome, Ann.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is great. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hand the virtual mic over to you, and I'll sit back and monitor the chat and the QA for you.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm really excited to be here and to share our story. It was an honor to be asked to share our story. You know, our story is one I definitely wouldn't have anticipated 8 years ago, you know, before Maya was born, or even, you know, at the moment that she was born. I don't know how many of you here are parents of children with disabilities, but it's kind of it's a steep learning curve. It's something where it's sort of like, well, you know, I don't know how to swim. Well, I'm going to throw you in the deep end. So that's kind of what it felt like for us anyway. And I've learned a lot in the last 8 years. I feel like I've come a long way from where I started, but not anywhere close to where I'd like to be. I'm still learning. I'm still definitely making mistakes as we go. It's trying to course correct when things don't go as planned. That's kind of our motto is, well, we don't know what we're doing right now, but we can learn what we need to do. So kind of bear with me as I tell our evolving story. I don't feel like it's finished, but this is kind of how it started. Maya was, she really comes by her nickname pretty honestly. She was born, even before she was born, she was a fighter, and no doubt we feel like much of her current success is really due to the incredible fire she has inside. She's strong-willed, fierce. If she could, I have no doubt she would breathe fire. I think when I say she's strong-willed, I mean she's strong-willed. There's this point, my husband and I sometimes will look at each other when, you know, we're doing something, whether it's therapy or just discipline, and we look at each other and think, you know, what are the teenage years going to bring? Because, you know, 7 and 8 haven't been the easiest, but we constantly remind ourselves that her tenacity and her will has served her well since well before she was born, and it will continue to serve her well throughout her life. So we try to keep that in mind as we're parenting her and figuring out, you know, that balance between letting her, you know, really assert herself, and then also, you know, trying to parent and trying to raise, you know, a good human, which is, I think, what we all strive for. So I wanted to read the book actually first before I kind of got into our story, because I feel like if you don't know our story, some of this really explains what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to try to share my screen here and see if I can, let's see if I can get this up. I think we got it. Can everybody see that? Can you see that, Josh? I'm wondering if I can get to the right page. Sorry, I'm having some trouble here. It's not letting me do anything. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay, this is a different scrolling. So I'm going to just read the book, and then, typically Maya likes to do the readings of the book, and she would have loved to have been here, but we have another family engagement. So she is not here to read the book, and she will be probably mad at me that she was not here to do this herself. So because I'm Maya, this is Abby, my golden doodle. She's the sweetest dog, part retriever, part poodle. Abby is different, just like me. She doesn't have 4 paws. She only has 3. We're going on adventures, daring and grand. We might climb tall mountains or play in the sand. I hope we see leopards and otters that dance. Adventures await if we just take a chance. You're too small for adventures, some grown-ups will say, but that won't get me down or stand in my way. See it, then be it, I say each day. If I believe I can, I'm nearly halfway. Mom said I was born just knowing I can. Here is the story of how it all began. I was born very early and really quite small. Right from the start, I had to give it my all. She's tiny but not mighty, the nurses would say. She's one fierce girl and she grows stronger each day. You're mighty, my mom and dad whispered to me. Mighty Miss Maya, you were born to be. Mighty Miss Maya, a nickname that stuck. I'm a kid with a plan and a whole lot of pluck. Enough, I don't want to run out of time. I see a big mountain, I know I can climb. High in the mountains, who knows what I'll see? Was that a moose flying by on one ski? Don't climb too high, says Dad, you might get hurt. I'm afraid you'll fall down and land in the dirt. I've fallen a few times, or maybe 9. Falls happen a lot, I know I'll be fine. See it, then be it, I always say. If I believe I can, I'm nearly halfway. I see myself scaling the tallest peaks, high in the mountains, the sun on my cheeks. With all the right tools, with Abby in tow, I climb to the top where there's oodles of snow. For our next adventure, we're off to the beach. I hope we see baby whales that jump and breach. There's a lot to discover in the deep blue sea. Will I find a mermaid who looks just like me? The water is shallow where I swim and splash. My brothers go out where the waves tumble and crash. Mom says, stay on the beach, play with your toys, but I'm determined to be with the boys. See it, then be it, I always say. I believe I can, I'm nearly halfway. This, I want to point out, is actually Maya's favorite page because she says it's probably one of the most accurate because I'm always kind of cautioning her with things, and she does always want to be out with her brothers, and she just thinks this is hilarious. Her brother with her sunglasses and her other brother falling in the water. So this is her favorite page of the book. I see myself with the wind whipping my hair, riding waves as sailfish soar through the air. I'm surfing waves with Abby by my side, speeding past my brothers, a fantastic ride. I'm sad that our adventures are almost done. Let's head to the forest for a little more fun. In the woods, animals play hide and seek. My brothers and I swing high over the creek. I've never made it to the swing on my own. Today I'm determined to do it alone. Unsteady and nervous, I stumble and trip. As I walk down the banks, I begin to slip. I almost give up, but I stop and say, see it, then be it. I'm nearly halfway. Abby keeps me steady. I walk down the slope. I reach for the swing and hold tight to the rope. Hooray, I did it, I yell, feeling so proud. I never gave up, and now I'm touching a cloud. Obstacles can stand in mine and Abby's way, but that won't keep us from having adventures each day. See it, then be it. Believe that it's true. When I believe, there's so much more I can do. We want you to know that you can do it too. We're almighty inside. Yes, even you. So I wanted to share that first because I think a lot of what is in the book has been our philosophy, teaching Maya and kind of trying to guide her through her diagnosis, and as well as for us, the things like, fall down 7, stand up 8. We're very much practice makes progress. And also, there's things that you might not be able to do, but that means you can't do them right now. So I kind of want to walk you through a little bit too, her journey. And if you have any questions, also feel free to stop me at any point. But I was going to kind of go over a little bit of our story in general, and then open it up to some questions and, how I came to write the book, things like that. So I'm going to try to share my screen again here. I'll pick this one here. Okay. So see it, then be it. Everybody kind of always asks me, you know, where does that come from? Maya, actually, it does come from a cartoon. Maya watched it on a cartoon, but the see it, then be it is a phrase that she came up with when she was doing therapy one day. She started doing this thing. She would close her eyes and she would say, you know, see it, then be it. And then she would like complete this exercise. And that was kind of that like, you know, I can't do it now, but I'm going to try my best. And so that's where we came up with the see it, then be it. But anyways, let me go back to the beginning. So Maya was born at 26 weeks. We knew actually even before around 18 weeks in my pregnancy, I was having some issues, and they noticed that Maya was really growth restricted. She was really tiny. And they told us she either needs to make it to 1 pound or she needs to make it to 24 weeks. She should both would be better. Otherwise, she's probably not going to make it. So even from before she was born, there was, we were fighting for her. She was fighting for herself to be here. And at 25 weeks, things really got critical. They said, we think she's around 1 pound, 5 ounces. Your blood pressure is starting to go up. I was hospitalized. And within 6 days, things got critical and they needed to deliver her. And instead of the 1 pound, 5 ounces that they were estimating at that time, she was a whopping 1 pound, 10 ounces. So we were, really thrilled that she was at that point. She was immediately whisked away to a NICU 3 hours away from where we live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're from Michigan. So I was just joking with Josh, Michigan, we're up here. Grand Rapids is like down here. So she was whisked away there. And, at the beginning, as a 26 weeker, she wasn't doing, she wasn't doing well. She was put on a ventilator. She was on a ventilator for almost a month, but what they did was she started on a ventilator, then she went up to an oscillating ventilator, then she went up to a jet ventilator. So each of these were like progressively, she needed more support. And then she got to the point on the jet ventilator where she still wasn't doing well. And it was at that point, we remember, the neonatologist, the head of the neonatology sat us down and said, look, she's not doing well, not as well as we had expected her to do. We are, we're kind of out of options as far as, treatments. We can give her a high dose of steroids. And at that time, we remember, them going through the side effects, things that could happen with the steroids. And, we both, my husband and I, recall them saying the word cerebral palsy. And but at that time, all of the side effects that they mentioned to us, we were like, just do what you need to do. So we opted for the high dose of steroids. She got the high dose of steroids, and by the next day, she was, back on the regular ventilator. By the day after that, she was put on CPAP, which is even like a lesser. This is what she has on in the picture there. And that's actually my husband's wedding ring. She was a month old in this picture, and that was my husband's wedding ring on her hand. And that fit all the way up to her elbow. So she spent 87 days in the NICU. And at discharge, we really were not given any indication that there was, any lasting effects. We were not really anticipating any issues. She had seen a physical therapist in the hospital. She had all the specialists, and none of them really indicated that we might need to look out for, certain things like CP. We just really felt like discharge, like we had kind of beaten the odds, like she had beaten the odds of, being so extremely premature and not having any lasting issues. She didn't have any issues with her eyes or her heart or anything. Um, and it was actually, in the NICU where she got her nickname from the nurses. There was always like, she's tiny but mighty. And so one of our nurses would always say, it's my day to be with mighty Miss Maya. So we really, her brother started calling her that, and we started calling her that. And it was a really sweet nickname for her. And so when we got home, we immediately got some intervention. In the state of Michigan, you automatically qualify for home services when your baby's in the NICU that long. And so we had a physical therapist and an occupational therapist, and it was an infant toddler program. And we really felt like, she was thriving at home. The few delays that she did seem to have were always kind of accounted for, like, she was a preemie. You can't really go by her regular age. You have to go by her adjusted age. So these are just, things that she's going to catch up. Don't worry about it. She's going to catch up. We heard that it's probably at least for the first 9 months to a year of her life, every time she had an appointment. And we would ask them, what about this? What about this? Our interventionists at home are asking, are mentioning things. And the doctors a lot of times would just say, it's too early to tell. It's too early to tell. And one of the things that really bothered me and still bothers me about this is, especially I found with, CP, learning more about it, the earlier the intervention, the better. And a lot of times it's hard to get services unless you have a diagnosis. And so, although I know it's really hard to make an official diagnosis, I do wish that there was something in place for families to get an earlier diagnosis so that they could get earlier interventions. And I also remember the physical therapist that came to our house. He one point said, because of her disability, and I can't even remember what he said, but he said, because of her disability. And I was like, what? I was like, our physicians have said she just needs to catch up. And that was the first time I had heard that term used about Maya. And it was a hard pill to swallow. Like, I was not ready in any way, shape, or form to hear that word associated with her. And, honestly, I didn't know a lot about disability and about CP. So it was really scary. Like I said, we did some therapies at home, still hearing she's fine, she'll catch up. Let's just wait and see. So we waited and we did some therapy and we waited some more. And then eventually, we asked, and we said, we really need, something's going on here. Like, I really felt like, she's not sitting up, she's not crawling. We need to figure out what's going on. So, we were able to talk to her doctors and get an MRI and get a diagnosis just before her second birthday. She was diagnosed with CP. And again, I had no, other than some of the, checking the internet and, Googling CP, and there's such a wide range of, CP can be anything from, a very mild, like, somebody might have a limp, or they, and then all the way on the spectrum. I had a friend whose son has CP, and, he's nonverbal and is in a wheelchair, and full-time wheelchair user, and is on oxygen. And so it was really hard for me to wrap my head around, like, okay, she has CP. What does that mean? And honestly, I left the office feeling like, oh, okay, she has CP. Like, by that time, she was sitting up. By the time we got the diagnosis, she was already starting to say, some words. She was able to, feed herself and do things. And so in my mind, it was really, and my husband and I kind of laugh about this a little bit right now because I really felt like, oh, okay, she needs physical therapy. They're like, you need to, you need to start outpatient physical therapy. And in my mind, I was like, oh, she has a broken leg. Like we're gonna, fix this. Like she's gonna go to PT. She's gonna learn how to walk, and then we'll be done with all of that, and she'll be, this. I just really didn't have a concept of what CP was, and I really, was in that early stage of parenting a child with a disability where I didn't really understand the full effect of what CP entailed. And, in some ways I'm embarrassed about this now, but there was this idea for me that like she needed to walk, like, oh, I want her to walk. Like that's what is the be all end all of, because that's what you see in the media. That's what, people think. And what I felt like, the only way she's going to have a quote unquote normal, life is if she's able to walk. And so in my mind, it was like, we're going to PT, she's going to walk. And then, we started going to PT, and, we got this diagnosis, we got to work. I struggled to accept it. And what I really was looking for was hope. Hope that, not only will she, learn to do some of these things that she couldn't do at the time, but that she was also going to, she was going to have a wonderful life, and that she could have a wonderful life. And that's when I really started to reach out, on the internet and like looking, again, Googling things, but then also connecting on social media to other parents, just looking like, if your kid sits up by this time, what are they going to do, and stuff like that. And then I would, connect with other parents. And that was a really important phase for me, because not only did I connect with other parents, I connected with other individuals with disabilities. And that's when I really started to learn, like, okay, this is, things are going to be okay. Like, and what my job was to make sure that Maya knew that no matter what, things were going to be okay. And that she, I wanted to empower her, and I wanted her to be able to, see herself the way we saw her. And that's when I started searching for books, and for things in the media. Like I really wanted to read Maya a book that featured a character with a disability. So I was all over Amazon. I was, asking lots of people, what books do you recommend? What can I, what can we read? And the first couple of books I got were books with kids, that were explaining what the disability was. And I felt like, okay, that's great. So now Maya knows, what is a disability, what this particular disability is. But then after that, what I wanted for her was, a book where she got to see herself, and she didn't have to, she wasn't learning about CP. I mean, at that point, I thought to myself, like, okay, the perspective for Maya is like, I'm reading these books to her that, are about CP, but like, she already knows what CP is. Like, she lives it, she has it. I wanted her to see I just wanted to be reading a book that had a character that had a wheelchair or a walker or braces, and they were just, doing their thing. So, that was kind of my, in the back of my mind at that point, like, okay, this is important. I wish there was, these books out there, but, life is busy with a kid with a disability, with CP. We had a lot of stuff going on. We were looking into, through my research and through my connections with other families online, we learned about selective dorsal rhizotomy. And so we started that process of researching, is this a good fit for Maya? And again, at that time when we researched it, I was like, okay, she needs to walk. Like that's why we're going to do this. And then as we got into the process, I I really had to look at it and say, my husband and I had some really important conversations, and it was more like, what kind of life do we want Maya to have? And does that is walking the be all end all of that life? And we realized, we want Maya to have the best quality of life that she can, wherever she is on the spectrum of physical, ability to walk or not walk, or if she's using a chair or a scooter or a walker or canes. We want her to experience life and be happy, and not be in pain. That was one of our big things. We didn't want her to be in pain. So, and we, if she gained an ability, to walk or to crawl or to use a walker, the more we learned about CP, we were worried that as she aged, she would lose some of those abilities. So that's what really prompted us to choose SDR. And we had a doctor, we we visited doctors in our area, and we had her evaluated at a couple different places. We wanted to make sure that this was the right option for her. And we had a doctor say to us, you're Looney Tunes if you do this surgery. She's got dystonia, which that was a diagnosis we had never heard before. She's not strong enough. She'll be worse off than before. She doesn't have the motor planning. A lot of scary things as a parent. And I always advocate that, your child best. And I don't, I do this with my own health. I'll Google something, and then like the next time at my doctor's office, I'll be like, well, I Googled those symptoms or whatever. He's like, don't do that. Like that's, and so I do feel like we have to listen to our medical professionals, but I also think that, there's this, as a parent, I have learned that it's not about getting the answer that you want. I do feel like there's this feeling that I get with Maya, like, no, this is not what she needs, or I feel like this is what she needs. And then, really doing the homework and doing the research to figure out, is this the most appropriate choice for her? This was a life-changing decision for us. The decision to go through with SDR was probably one of the hardest decisions we've ever had to make. It was not by any means an easy choice, but when it came down to it, our choice had moved from the start of the decision, which was before she got the surgery, we had been researching and doing things for about 2 years before we even made this decision. And in the beginning, like I said, the decision was like, oh, this might be able to help her walk. By the time we got to the point for her surgery, it was more, this is going to give her a better quality of life, less pain. She was scissoring her legs. It was hard to do even daily things like, changing her. She had a really strong, her spasticity was really strong. So, we made that decision knowing that, Maya might never walk, and she might be at the same present level that she was, but from what we had learned, this was probably her best option long term, to save her from other surgeries possibly, and from just that possibility of pain later on. And the reason I think a lot of people know the name Mighty Miss Maya is a few weeks after her surgery. Prior to her surgery, actually, I should say, Maya was not taking, she had never taken an independent step. She did not have the ability to stand on her own. She used a walker for most of her mobility, sometimes a wheelchair. At that time, she was still really tiny, so we carried her a lot of places. But after her surgery, she did take her first independent steps. And the story behind that, like we were very fortunate to catch it on tape, because we had all these exercises we had to do after SDR, all these home exercises. And one of the things that she had to do was these sit to stands. So I was practicing sit to stands with her, and she looked so strong and amazing. And I was taping that, and I called my husband in and I said, look, come look how, awesome she's doing with these sit to stands. And he said, yeah, she does look really stable. And then he thought, he just asked her, like, can you take a step? And she did. And so I was going to just play. I hope it plays. I don't know if it'll play through, but I'm sure some of you may have seen this. I don't know if it's actually going to play now. Anyways, I was going to try to play her first steps video, but I don't think it's going to go through. I'm not sure. Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, sorry, it's not going to play, but you can Google it later. I'll put up a link to it in the chat. But so after that video went viral, our social media really took off, and really that became the point when I realized there were so many more parents out there in the same boat that we were, that were looking for hope, that were looking for information, just general information, like what kind of shoes do you wear with AFOs? What kind of therapies are you doing? Have you, do you know about this therapy? Do you know about this treatment? And that was it was a really fulfilling to me to feel like, oh, okay, like I can actually feel like I can help other people. But I felt like I got a lot of support from that. And I do think it's, parent support is something that often gets overlooked. And I do feel like sharing our story on social media has given me and still gives me a lot of just a feeling of, somebody gets it. So I feel like if I post something or if I reach out to another family, I do feel like that piece of having somebody just knowing exactly how I feel because they've been through it or they're going through it is wonderful. I do think, and I do get the number one question is, what is the best thing that you've done for Maya? And a lot of times I think they're looking for like, well, what one piece of equipment can I buy, or what therapy can I try? And SDR definitely was one of the best things we did, but I just think the best thing that you can do, the best thing that I feel like I've ever been able to do for Maya is just to be her advocate and to be her voice, and to learn to trust that I do have more information, like I do have a sense of what she needs and what she doesn't need. And I'm the person, that and her dad and her brothers and our whole family, that we're the ones teaching her how how to live in this world. And I do feel like this world is not it's not set up for people with disabilities, and it's not, the media doesn't portray people with disabilities in a way that that I think provides them with like a strong sense of themselves. And I do what I really am trying to show Maya is there's so many ways to live in this world. There's so many ways to do a thing in this world. So just because, your friend, she loves, her brothers played tennis and she loves it and she wants to play, and she really does not want to play wheelchair tennis. But we have, I have tried to show her what joy she can get out of tennis, using a wheelchair, instead of, trying to keep her balance and trying to focus on the things that really are not that important. And we would, say to her, like, what do you love about playing tennis? And then, when she tells us what she loves about doing something, and then she'll say, well, I want to do it like my brothers do it. Like, we always are trying to show her there's so many different ways to do things in this world, and there's not just this one way. And that was really like one of my the big reasons that, I eventually started writing this book was just for Maya. I really thought, okay, Maya needs to see herself in a book. She needs to see how strong and powerful she is. She needs to see all the adventures that we have. We love the outdoors. We love doing these things. Maya, she wanted to try paddleboarding. We figured out a way for her to try paddleboarding. We've gone out west to Yellowstone and to the Tetons, and she, wants to hike and do all these things. And, she's done all those things. It has been exactly the way that she has wanted. Not always, but I wanted her to see that, those things represented in a book. And I really thought, okay, like I wanted it to be well illustrated. I wanted it to be something that, looked like a real children's book. So, I worked really hard on it, and I really felt like, oh, this might be, good for some other kids that I know that have CP. And then I started sharing the book with friends and teachers teachers in some local schools. And they're like, wow, this is what we've been trying to teach our kids, this growth mindset that, just because we're not able to do it now doesn't mean we're not ever going to be able to do it. This repeating line of see it, then be it, has been a really powerful message for a lot of kids. And I'm just going to skip ahead to some of the one of my actually absolute favorite, I would call it a review, came in from somebody that I know that lives across the country, and their daughter who's 13. And I didn't know that she had any, anything going on, physical or, emotional or anything. But she said, I understand what it's like to be different. And I love how you made this book about Maya herself rather than her disability, teaching kids everywhere that we are more than the struggles we face. I wish there were books like this when I was younger. Thank you so much for writing it. That was that was like more than I thought, okay, that's all I ever need to hear. I mean, number one, Maya loves the book. She loves sharing it. She loves reading it. She wants me to make it into a series. She's like, when are you going to write the next book? But that right there, I think, I don't know if there is anything more that you can ask for, that when you put something out into the world, that is the response that you get, that we are all more than the struggles that we face. And to see yourself to see yourself represented in a book, or to see yourself in a character in a book, has been really powerful for Maya. And so I'm just really glad that people like it and that they keep sharing it with their friends and family. And I also love that this is not just a book for kids with disabilities, that teachers are reading this to their classes, to teach them about the power of positive self-talk, and that growth mindset. So that's just been a really amazing experience. And like I said, it's not anything I ever imagined. 8 years ago, I never would have imagined being in this spot, but I think we all sort of, whatever is happening in your life becomes, I guess, what and what you start to, it's something that I love to do. It's not my full-time job, but I love it. It's an amazing experience. And so thank you for letting me share. If you have any questions, I'm super happy to answer any questions that you might have. I know there's some chat. I think Josh said he was gonna.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. Yeah, if anybody has any questions to put in the QA, I'll be more than happy to help facilitate that. It was a really lively chat. We had a lot of people talking and loving the book.
I know. I was like, I saw 50 chat. Like the chat was, that was going.
All right, here we got a QA here. Nicole asks, were you reluctant to be so open on social media at first? How did you deal with it?
Yeah, we were super reluctant. Actually, my husband has like a lower tolerance for social media than I do. Like he doesn't he doesn't love it, but when he saw what it did for me personally, sharing our story, you know, I was in a rough place after Maya was diagnosed. It's a hard thing for a parent. But I think once we started sharing our story, and once we started connecting with more parents, and then it was a way for me to learn, but it was also a way to, you know, feel like we were, you know, giving back. It was really hard when Maya was first diagnosed to figure out, you know, like, oh, what should we be doing for therapy, or what, you know, even the simplest things of like, I don't know how to buy shoes for AFOs. And I feel like those, you know, I do get a certain, every week I get a question about you know, shoes for AFOs. Every week I get a question about, you know, SDR or therapies. And, you know, I'm happy to answer all of them, because I was that parent at one time. And, you know, and I'm still learning from, you know, we have a lot of adults with CP that follow our account. And whenever I have a question, about, you know, something with Maya that came up, you know, when I post it, I always get a great response, and I start to learn, you know, you know, to help her navigate her feelings about having CP or something, you know, maybe it's something physical that I hadn't thought about before. So yeah, I mean, there are times where I feel like, oh wow, we're really, you know, we're really putting ourselves out there. But you know, I try to be really sensitive to Maya. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, she's always so happy. You know, I'm not going to share on social media when she's having, you know, like, she does get mad. I mean, she does slam her door. She does get mad, and just like any other, you know, 8-year-old. But those are the kind of things, like, I feel like, if, you know, I try to keep it more about, you know, disability advocacy, and, you know, learning about things that I can do for her, and sharing with other families what they can, what might be useful to them.
Shannon asks, Anne, are there plans for a series as per request from Maya?
I am working on, yeah, I'm working on 2 books right now, actually. So a book 2 and a book 3. So hopefully by next fall, there'll be a book 2, and then shortly after, a book 3.
Sherry asks, as a child development specialist and a person with CP, I have found some parents don't have your outlook on life. What helped you through the toughest times in adjusting expectations?
I think uh, realizing that, like, there's a lot of all of this, like, you know, be positive, be, you know, the power of positivity. I have found that, like, you kind of have to, you know, like I was saying, course correct. So I do let myself, you know, sometimes it's really, really hard, and I have learned to let myself feel like, when it's hard, it's really hard, and not to say, oh, you know, be positive, at least this, or, you know, I let myself feel that. And then usually out of that comes, like, okay, like, I can pick myself back up. And it's the same for Maya. It's how you know, I want her to see us as well. You know, things are hard, but they're not always going to be hard. And it's okay to feel, you know, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel down. It's okay to be mad about this. And then, you know, it might be a couple days, it might be a week, you know, things will improve. And you know, a lot of times we do learn something from that. But I'm never like, oh, okay, I should just be, you know, that positive mindset. I mean, I think that that's it's kind of dangerous, honestly, for parents to always feel like, oh, you know, if I just stay positive enough. No, like, when you're upset, just, you know, be upset for a while, and then you'll figure it out. But it's okay to be sad and upset.
Okay. Shannon just commented, I'm a woman with CP that was born in the 80s, and my parents did not have access to their resources. So thank you for helping expand their resource collective.
You're welcome. It has been one of the best parts of sharing our stories. I know I tried to devour everything I could when Maya was first diagnosed, and there were holes and gaps that I think a lot of parents, I think there are a lot of families like ours that are sharing their story more, and I think it's helping. I love that there are more people willing to share their story out there, because I think it's helping everybody.
Lindsay asks, are her siblings overprotective of her at all?
Sorry, excuse me. I would say not really. I think when she is in a physical situation that is that she might be a little bit dangerous, they're maybe a little bit more protective, but it's really hard to say because she is the little sister. But I think that, I know that there was a saying one time, like, if you want to know how to treat, a child with a disability, look to their siblings. And I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, they're helpful when they need to be. And the rest of the time, she's just their sister, and she's annoying to them.
Nicole wants to know, where can we get the book, and and is the link, and she posted the link in the chat. Is that the best place to find it?
So you can get it. Yeah, on our website is probably where I typically would direct people. There is one of our regional bookstores carries the book, and they do sell it on Amazon, but going to our website is usually where I point people first.
And Nicole asks, how is Maya adjusting to school now that she's getting older?
She loves school. She's a very social kid. She did virtual school last year, which was really, really hard for her. Just for that reason, she did fine academically online, but she loves being in school. This year has been more of an adjustment though, because the last time she was in person, she was in kindergarten, and I think she didn't notice her differences as much. And even though, she's very, she uses a scooter to get long distances in school, but the rest of the time she is now independently walking. But it's the little things that she notices. They just went on a field trip on Friday, and they kept calling it a walking field trip. And so Maya was very upset because she was going to be taking her scooter to, the place that they were going to be visiting, and she was like, no, it's a walking field trip. I have to walk. Like, I need to walk. And it was really tough for her because she knew all of her peers would be walking, and we really had to have some discussions around that about you're going to be saving your energy so that you can have fun and enjoy the field trip when you get there. The walking part is, they were just calling it that because they're not taking a bus. So, she's noticing her differences more. And so we're having a lot more discussions around, feelings, a lot of that stuff. But in general, she wouldn't trade it for sure. She loves being at school.
Some other questions. Here we go. GMFCS. Do you know what that stands for?
I couldn't name the things, but okay. I know what it's like. There's levels, like 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the GMFCS scale and how it pertains to Maya?
I never really paid attention to it after probably like her third or fourth appointment, only because one, the thing that I noticed was when we would see different doctors, especially when we were getting her evaluated for SDR, nobody could agree on what level she was. And then also nobody could agree completely on Maya's, like if it was just spastic diplegia, which, you know, would just be her legs, or some were saying like, oh, she has one arm that's involved. No, we think she has both arms involved. So I sort of kind of just took it with a grain of salt. Like, I don't know if I should pay more attention to it, but I guess I just kind of look to my, like, what is she doing? What can she do? I don't really, I don't even think any of her doctors have brought it up in years. So
Some other questions for Anne? So Anne, have you seen, since you came out with the book, have you seen more children's books coming out with disability representation?
I do feel like there have been more books with disability representation. I do know, I'm trying to remember the exact statistics and things, but one of the things that I read, and I'm trying to remember the source, they do like studies on children's books. Most of the children's books that do come out that have a character with a disability, for the most part, they're in a wheelchair. So there's still not a lot of representation of kids that use other devices like a walker or canes, or, you know, forearm crutches, things like that. Most of the, even some of the books that come out, I think that's, you know, society is sort of like, oh, you're disabled, you use a wheelchair. And that's why, you know, in the back of our book, and I didn't share those pages, because this was something that I learned too. I mean, I think I had that mindset that if you are in a wheelchair, you're in a wheelchair, and you don't walk, or you don't. And, you know, as I learned more about disability and what Maya would need for her future, you know, it made perfect sense to me that, okay, you know, she's going to use a wheelchair for longer distances, or a scooter. So she doesn't get tired, and then she's going to use a walker, or maybe she walks by herself, or maybe she uses a cane, or, you know, for whatever reason. And I think that that's still what's portrayed in the media and in books is, you know, if a character has a disability, they're using a wheelchair. So I would like to see more books and things with kids that use those other assistive devices.
So another question for you is, like, if, you know, we have people attending says, hey, this is a great, I have a story to tell. How did you find the Illustrator?
So I started joining self-publishing Facebook groups. So I self-published the book. I learned from, I had connected with another person that self-published a book, and they kind of said, you know, join these Facebook groups, and they'll kind of teach you how to do this whole process. And so that's what I did. I went on, you know, these Facebook groups, these self-publishing groups, and, you know, learned all this stuff, like how do you hire an illustrator? And basically it was like, you can go on, there's some sites that you can go on there where there's illustrators, and, you know, illustrators can cost anywhere from $1,000 for a book, or, you know, $20,000 for a book. It just depends on their level, and, you know, where they are in their career. And what I ended up doing, because I really had a very specific vision in mind of how I wanted the book to look, and I felt like I was striking out on some of these websites that were suggested. And so I just went on I went on Instagram, and I, you know, search the hashtag, you know, Illustrator or children's book, and, you know, just look through, I would say, hundreds and hundreds of illustrators, and reached out to a few and asked them, to if they would be willing to do a character drawing, because I knew that the most important thing would be, I really wanted it to look like Maya, and I wanted it to look like Abby. And a lot of those you have to pay for them because they're spending their time creating these characters. And so that's what that's how I found them, was again on Instagram, just reaching out.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Ann. We're gonna. This has been fantastic, and we'll make sure that your links are shared and everything.
Okay.
So everybody else, we're gonna take a 15-minute break, and we will see you at 2:15 at our next.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ann.
Bye.